Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum. I am Abu Bakr Madyun. I am a member of the Atlanta Masjid of Al-Islam, and I'd like to make a brief presentation. I hope that you can get something out of it. The religion of Islam has been grossly overlooked in the evolution of American society, yet it has played a major role in America's development. The Constitution of the United States of America was written based upon Quranic principles. Freemasonry, a major organization here in this country, has its roots in Islam and in the Quran. With this oversight, the Islamic Historical Society of America, IHSOA, we are also called, which is our acronym for our organization, we were organized to fill that void that was created from this neglect. Our purpose for forming IHSOA is to ensure that our story is written and chronicled with accuracy, and to clear up the widespread mediated myths and confusion concerning our beliefs and how we worship. If we fail to write our own history, chronicling the major contribution that Muslims, and in particular African American Muslims who have contributed in this nation's growth and development, somebody else will, and it won't be pretty. Let's see. This labor of love does come with a price. The price comes in the form of hard labor from the members of our organization who sacrifice their precious time, and we have to contribute our dollars that we both may have or may not have in order to make our cause successful. So we ask that you help us in our noble cause in leaving our and your legacy for your and our children and their progeny with your generous support. For the African American, the Nation of Islam was our introduction to the religion of Islam for most of us. For me, the Nation of Islam was my father that brought me into a new and better life for myself and for my family. I joined the Nation of Islam in April of 1966 at Temple Number 5 in Cincinnati, Ohio. That was when my letter was approved that new members were required to write to W.F. Muhammad, whom we considered to be our savior at that time. I was so impressed with the way that the brothers and the sisters at the temple treated their guests and how they conducted themselves. It was really something that I never had witnessed very often before out in the streets. I actually attended my first temple meeting in November of 1965. My wife and mother of my oldest two children also joined the nation with me. I began to attend the FOI, Fruit of Islam classes, once I received my letter back from Chicago and my membership was approved. That was when I received my X, which is given to new members once they become enrolled in the nation. I became James 7X there in Cincinnati. So what that meant was that there were 6 brothers by the name of James that came before me who got their X's. So I was the 7th one, so therefore I became James 7X. Okay? Later on, when I migrated to the San Francisco Bay Area on the West Coast, I became James 54X. My FOI training began with not only the FOI classes on Saturday, where we drilled for discipline and exercise, but we also learned martial arts on Tuesday nights when I was in Cincinnati from Brother Arthur 3X. Paper pushes with the Muhammad Speaks newspaper was also a part of the process of becoming a well-rounded fruit. Each brother was required to carry and sell no less than 300 papers, and you had to take those papers every week. You were required to prepay for your papers in advance at the wholesale rate of, I believe it was around 12 cents a copy. I don't really remember. And you sold them for 20 cents, earning you a whopping 8 cents per copy. So when you sold 300 papers, you earned for yourself the fantastic sum of $24. It wasn't very much, but it wasn't important either about how much you made for selling the papers. What was more important was reaching the people with Mr. Muhammad's message. If anybody committed any infraction against the rules and regulations of the Nation of Islam, they were suspended from participating in their activities and placed in either what was termed Class C or Class F, depending on the infraction. The suspendee was not permitted to have any contact with any of the believers from 90 days in the event of Class C classification, or 1 year for classification of Class F. We were taught that we were to be clean and mannerable at all times. We were not to fornicate or commit adultery, no smoking, drinking, intoxicating beverages, and to always display the best behavior in public as well as in private. We had our own schools for our children called the Nation of Islam. Called the University of Islam, pardon me. And we were encouraged to take our children out of the devil's schools and educate them ourselves. In 1971, that was when I had migrated to California. There, I became acquainted with Captain Harold 2X of Temple Number 26. Henry Akbar Majid was the minister at Temple Number 26 at that time. Later, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had set him down as the minister, and he sent Minister John Muhammad of Springfield, Massachusetts, there to replace Majid as minister. His captain at first was Albert 2X Leonard. Albert was also replaced with Brother Clarence 2X, who was the first lieutenant under Captain Yusuf Shaw out of New York City, down in Harlem. Captain Clarence later became Hussein Shabazz, and later on in our evolution, Imam Muhammad appointed Hussein Shabazz as the Imam at the Newark, New Jersey Masjid. After his return to Allah, I believe Ali Muslim became the Imam there in Newark. At Temple Number 26, I was a member of the Muhammad Speaks paper crew. I also served on the fish crew selling the Whiting H&G fish from Peru. Temple Number 26 was moving an average of about 20 tons of fish each month. I was also the manager of the Shabazz snack shop that was located directly beneath the temple, located at the corner of Fillmore and Geary Street in San Francisco. While on the paper crew, we carried the Muhammad Speaks newspaper all over the country, as well as taking them up to places like Canada. We even went up to Canada. I recall the time that our crew was there in Chicago, the year that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed in 75. 75. We had arrived there about 2 days before the convention, which was always on February the 26th. It was cold, and there was some deep snow on the ground. We didn't know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had passed yet on the 25th. We had left the hotel and caught the train up to Evanston to settle on the campus of Northwestern University. And while walking to the campus, an old Caucasian man approached me, and he told me with kind of like a pride in his demeanor that, yeah, your Honorable Elijah Muhammad died, didn't he? And at that time, I didn't believe that the messenger would ever die in our lifetime. And that's what I told him. I told him, I know you devils would like to see the Honorable Elijah Muhammad dead, but he's going to outlive all of us, you know. Afterwards, the crew caught the train and we went over to sell at Loyola University. When we got off the train, on the way out of the terminal, I met one of those revolutionary sisters. She walked up to me. She might have been one of the Panthers there with Fred Hampton. The sister had on some checker boots, a dungaree outfit, and those round rim, granny shades, and she had this big fro. She first gave me the greeting, Assalamu alaikum, brother. And of course I returned it to her, wa alaikum salam, sister. She asked me for the price of the paper, and I told her 25 cents, sister. She asked for the paper, and then she gave me a quarter. And then she said, brother, it's a shame about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passing. I told her that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would outlive all of us. But watch this. She patiently told me that she understood that though the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had passed in his physical body, that his ideas would live on forever. Man, that brought me to my senses, I believe, and it changed my life from that point on because it actually woke me up. I was blown away with her understanding. So it was like Allah had actually sent me an angel to wake me up. That's a true story. Though the ground was heaped with snow when we arrived in Chicago and the temperatures were in the single digits, that Monday, as we began to drive away from the hotel to get on the road back to the coast, the sun was shining bright that day. The temperature had climbed to around 70 degrees. Of course, the snow was gone from the ground and the pavement was dry as we hit the highway. We eventually stopped in Arizona and we visited some of the college's campuses there. We were always successful in our sales because people would sometimes give us, generous donations because besides selling the paper, we would also solicit funds for the school, the University of Islam. When we departed Arizona, we were then on our way to Las Vegas. Our crew chief, Lieutenant Ronald 2X Rutherford, had his wife with him on this particular trip. When we began descending away from the Hoover Dam crossing, coming down out of the mountains into Vegas, we were followed by a state trooper. It was around dusk. By the time the sun had completely set and it had gotten completely dark, there were no less than 5 police cars behind us. At that point, that was when they shined the light on us and they started shouting through the bullhorn for us to pull over. When I pulled the car over to the side, because I was driving the car, the cop shouted through the bullhorn telling us to place our hands on top of the car. Now, how do you do that from inside the car? And to exit the car with our hands in the air. So at that point, they told us to kneel down as they approached us with our hands behind our heads. And every one of these cops had shotguns pointed at our heads. They searched all of us, including Lieutenant Ronald's wife, and they also ransacked the car. They had thrown our open luggage into the road and taken the back seats out of the car and did likewise. Lieutenant Ronald told them he could probably help them if he knew that what they were looking for, but their red-headed crew chief told him to shut up. When seemingly they didn't find what they were looking for, they left us there. The next morning, we went down to the Las Vegas police station to file a formal complaint. We had occasion to talk to the chief of police, who happened to be an African American. He told us that we should file suit against both the police department and the city of Las Vegas. Unfortunately, that never happened for reason beyond my personal explanation. On one occasion, when I was on the fish crew, we were just arriving in one of the neighborhoods in the city of Newark, California, in our truck, when a police officer pulled us over and asked if one of the brothers in the truck would step out. They claimed that he had a traffic warrant. The brother, Yahya Shabazz, went to step out of the truck, but before he could set his feet on the ground, they began jerking and pulling all on him. I mean, they just vamped on him. At that point, you heard a loud resounding Allahu Akbar. That was me. And at that point, we, the Brotherhood of the Fruit of Islam, were on those police like fire ants after somebody had stepped on their anthill. I think that same year, Brother Larry 2X Crosby was shot in the back by a policeman up in Berkeley, California, in a scrap with the police while out selling fish with the crew. The brother, he's still living, but he's paralyzed from the waist down and in a wheelchair today. A Caucasian woman who had been previously attacked by whom she claimed was a black man selling in the neighborhood had called the police complaining about the brothers selling in the area. We, the men of the NOI, were the pioneers who paved the way for where we are today under the teachings of Imam W. Deen Muhammad, the son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We had to endure sometimes grave obstacles that we had to overcome in order to have been successful, and that we were. A terrible occurrence took place during that period of the 70s that involved the NOI. There was a group of brothers that belonged to the Nation of Islam who called themselves the Death Angels, who went on a killing spree in the San Francisco area. They were targeting Caucasians, and these killings had the city of San Francisco on edge. The police decided that since the killings were black on white murders, they began to label them, along with the media, as the zebra murders or the zebra killings. If you Google it, you'll find a variety of stories and newspaper articles on the zebra murders in San Francisco. Once the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had passed in 1975, the community went into a transition under the Nation of Islam leader, Wallace D. Muhammad. Lots of changes took place, including the removal of the chairs from the temples all over the country, where we began sitting on the floors of the masajid. The chief minister, which is what we called him in the beginning, began to permit whites and all peoples to come into our places of worship. A lot of members of the community didn't like this move, and many of them left the community. Chief Minister Wallace later changed his name to Imam Warifuddin Muhammad. Most of us know him as W. Deen Muhammad. Included in our transition, the Imam shut down all the businesses and turned them over to private owners. This as well didn't set right with a lot of followers because they didn't understand business, and in a lot of cases they were grossly misinformed about the move. Imam Muhammad had explained to us that the majority of the businesses had become financial burdens to the community because of mismanagement, and a lot of the managers were stealing money from the businesses, resulting in sizable financial losses. It was during this period of transition that all the believers from the San Francisco temple had transferred over to the Oakland temple. Most of them lived in Oakland anyway, and I think that some of the believers who lived in San Francisco moved over to Oakland to be near the mosque or the masjid. Imam Muhammad had purchased a large religious complex from a Christian group, and we began having our services and meetings there. Minister John Hussein Fakir was the imam there during that period. It was later that Imam Muhammad had appointed Muhammad Abdullah as imam over the Oakland Masjid. We had several imams at the Oakland Masjid as well that included Imam Muhammad himself. Andrew Mustafa Hassan, Abu Qadir El-Amin, and his present imam, Fahim Shuaib. And I would like to go further with some more of the history of the Nation of Islam, but my time is kind of limited. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed my presentation here and that you got something from what I presented to you. So I would like to thank you as I greet you in the greeting of Arabic, which is the language of Quran, the language of peace. Assalamu alaikum.